So I've been away from a while, and I haven't really been working on FPV stuff. I've just been working on like regular work stuff and regular life stuff. I do have a lot of things in the works that I hope will come sometime in the somewhat near future. Also, I want to have kind of a really remotely serious discussion about something that I'll discuss closer to the end of this video in the comment section below. I really do want everybody's input on this, and I do read all of my comments. But let's first talk about all this other stuff that I have first. So the most interesting thing that I probably have is this little guy. So with my newfound obviousness that a larger motor gives me better throttle control and better control feel overall, I am once again trying to squeeze that control feel into a tiny package. And I've built a whole bunch of this tiny stuff in the past, and I have hated it. But now there's a new motor that has inspired me to build this little guy. So this is a frame that I really quickly threw together. I think it's like 85 millimeters, I think around 85 millimeters. And I'm planning on using, or as you can see here, the Emax 6S 4-in-1 with the Talon F4, which is my favorite flight controller, with another little 20x20 VTX on top. And I'm going to be using it with this battery. And this is the really special aspect of this, because these birds are so annoying. And this is what's really special about it. This is a 300 milliamp 6S battery. So I'm going to be running 1108 5000 kV motors on the Cyclone 2035 quad blade, because I tested this back in the day and I actually like this prop a lot. And quad blade, because quad blades naturally have more control feel overall. So I'm getting the absolute best possible everything into the smallest package I can fit, which is going to be that 1108 5000 kV motor on 6S and those quad blade props. I don't know how it's going to perform, but oh gosh, I don't know how it's going to perform, but it's going to be interesting to see if I can achieve what I want to achieve. Moving on, this is my Snappy 75. So I love this thing. I actually gave away the UR65 to a friend because I like the Snappy 75 a lot more. This is actually the Beta 75X, not 2X frame. And the main reason why I bought this frame and switched this frame is because this aluminum frame, it bends every single time you bump into anything at all, and it's such a pain to bend back and fix. I think I did actually break one of the motor mounts finally after like 100 crashes and bend backs. But this frame is completely plastic as resin. It's very flexible. It does not break at all. You probably can't break it if you try it, even in cold weather. It has a very sturdy motor mount, as you can see here, and it's made by Beta, which is generally just very high quality stuff overall. They really know what they're doing. So it's not going to break, and it's 4 grams lighter. 4 grams lighter than this aluminum carbon frame. So I was expecting like a nice boost in performance, but what I then realized afterwards is that look how tall the prop guards are. Those are much taller prop guards. When I had the aluminum frame, the props actually sat above the aluminum rim. So now the props actually sit just barely under or right at the lip of this rim, and that actually does have an effect on the thrust dynamics and the way the thing works, and you can definitely hear it in the air working harder. However, the flight time isn't reduced, but I also don't gain a whole bunch of performance. Like the punch is, it's probably the same or a little bit less than the aluminum rim frame, but it doesn't break, so I'm much happier overall. And yeah, that's it. So if you want a nice upgrade to your Snappy 75, I don't have the quad blade props yet. I don't know why they haven't come. They've taken forever to come, but I'm waiting on that. It's going to be the next upgrade to this little thing. Also, I'm planning on building another one of these in like with different motors and different everything with the same flight controller thing in there. I also have the Beta 75 2X coming, the Beta 65 coming. I'm very much looking forward to those. The 2S Beta 75 looks absolutely incredible, so I'm really looking forward to those. Next, I have the ND filter that I have been really half working on for a while now. It's finally here. Sergio has a big batch of them already. I don't know why he hasn't put it on the site yet. This is typical for Sergio. He's got something in stock and he hasn't put it on the site yet just because he's too busy doing other things. Anyways, this is the case it's going to come in. It's going to come with 2 filters. I think it's going to be $8.99, $9.99, but you get 2 filters. Unfortunately, this batch is not the ideal batch because the company wasn't really excited about making me this filter. They said that they had made this filter for another company actually, and they didn't want to sell it to me. So I coerced my agent guy in China to make them give it to me, and I told him I wanted the same measurements as the TBS Jello Guard, and pretty much every other GoPro filter on the market, which is 1.8 or 1.9 millimeters thick, 36 by 33, and that is what they actually made this for. This is intended to be a GoPro filter, but they gave me the same one that they had made for another company rather than making it in the size that I wanted, which they said is because they don't know if they can get the same kind of clarity in the thickness that I want. If you notice here, this is a 1.2 millimeter thick, not a 1.8 or a 1.9 millimeter thick piece of glass, and that is the only difference. It is 32.5 by 36 millimeters, so it will fit in your typical GoPro ND filter mount. It's unfortunate that I didn't get that 1.8, 1.9 millimeter thickness, but I also am not sure if that extra thickness is going to make it any more durable. It is glass. I don't think it's tempered. It's a high quality filter, but it's made for filtering. It's not made for crashing into things. So it will be available soon. And the one biggest risk to any glass filter is that you can crash, you will break the glass, and it can potentially scratch your GoPro lens. I have done that to 2 of my GoPros now. Not with this particular filter, actually with other filters that are on the market. So yeah, be aware of that. There is some risk to this, but that's the risk you pay for when you want to get smooth video. Anyways, this is an ND16 filter, or at least that's what they're saying, it's an ND16 filter. I actually put it over the camera lens. You can see how dark it is, pretty much. This is essentially what the GoPro sees, except that the GoPro, actually I have my camera set on fixed dynamic range here. I'll refocus it right now, so let it see what it turns into. And so the GoPro has actually a fantastic dynamic range, and as you can see here, the camera, my phone has even adjusted for this filter very nicely, and it looks pretty fine now. And that's what the GoPro does as well. So the GoPro has a super duper fantastic dynamic range, and that's what I'm banking on when I use this filter, and that's why I made an ND16 filter, why I wanted an ND16 filter. The ND8 filters, they are very good at cutting the jello out. I'm not going to get into that. The ND16 filter is very good at giving you motion blur in addition to cutting the jello out, and that's why I wanted an ND60 filter. Also, getting a darker filter to be high quality and as clear as this filter is very challenging. I can go on and on about this filter. A lot of thought went into it. I tested a whole lot of products for it. It will be available very soon, and I will make another video discussing on how I use it and my basic GoPro settings, which are basically stock default settings. Next, let's look at some VTXs actually. So this VTX I have in here, I'm too lazy to take the top off and show it to you, so I'll show you a picture. But this VTX I have in here is made by FXT, and it's the half board that I showed you in the last video. It's like a half board VTX. And I tend to like those because they fit on top of my 30 by 30 4-in-1s nicely, and they leave me room for other stuff and wiring as well. And this particular one is interesting because it actually has a plug-in over here for the same control board that you use to control your camera settings. And so it actually has a OSD built into the VTX itself. And you can go in and set all the VTX settings you could imagine. I couldn't get it to run smart audio or the Tramp audio, which I expected it to have, which is annoying, but it also has a 400 milliwatt setting, which I like a lot because 200 is a little bit low. I don't really need the 600 or 800. It could potentially cause problems where I am flying because of surrounding areas. 400 is a really nice medium, and so I like that a lot. But then I talked to a couple people that really prefer this one. So a couple guys that are really big racers I talked to. I think also RC Attic, he really likes this VTX a lot. So I picked up a couple of these VTXs that I'm going to be putting in my other builds. Again, it's this like half board, and I really like it because it's a really compact little board. It's really nice little board. I don't know how it's going to survive. It also has these solder points on the bottom, which I like very much. It has the MMCX, which I like very much. It also has this connector, which I actually don't like, but it's a little bit of a compromise. So this is the connector it has on it, and this is the same one that's on the FXT and a lot of other VTXs as well. This is the connector that comes on the Unify. I actually don't have any more Unifys left because they just don't mount nicely in my frame, even though I like that VTX a lot. And I like this connector because the clip is really robust, but it's a higher profile connector, so it's just annoying. I think I might end up just soldering this one in, or I'll just use the connector. So while VTX are kind of hard to report on because all the good ones pretty much work the same and they're all pretty good and clean these days, I have pretty much only used the Unify up till a couple of months ago. And so I hope to have good experiences with these VTXs, and I hope to have more things to say about them. And now let's look at props. So there are a couple of prop companies that I have to I mean, I don't really do props so much anymore because there's so many good props already that it doesn't really matter which one you choose. As long as you choose one that was made in the last year and a half, they're all pretty much good. But there are a couple of companies that are really, really good at making certain props. So a while ago, the Tmotor 5143 came out, which I did not expect to be a good prop because look how thin the blade cord is. It's such a tiny little blade and it's so flimsy. It's 3.6 grams. And this prop weighs nothing. It's almost as light as the original HQ 5x4x3. And that's probably why I like it so much. It gives you good thrust, has great efficiency. It is so light and responsive, and that's why I like it more than anything else. I love this prop for that light and responsive feel, especially on a 2207 or a 2208 or somewhere in the middle motor. It's incredible. I still have not felt a prop that feels as good as this to me in the air. This is my personal preferred prop. Gemfan actually makes this prop. I don't know why they gave it to Tmotor to market as their prop, but Gemfan actually makes this prop. It's actually 5.1 inches. It's not a 5-inch, just named 5143. And previously, before that prop, they had this prop, which is the 5042. And they made this, I think, a year ago now. And they came out with it. It was called the Wind Dancer, but it wasn't a very good prop because it was very, very slow. It had good control and good response, but it was a very, very low speed prop. And the plastic was like that plastic that when it bends, it gets those white lines and it cracks. So it's pretty much a useless prop. And I told them that before it even came out. But they remade it in their regular plastic. And this is the 5042 in the regular plastic. And they also made a 5043. And this is the prototype of the 5043. And I'll show you the difference between the two. You can see that the 5043 is definitely a steeper pitch, without a doubt. But they made this after they made, they made the Tmotor prop after they made the 5042. So I'm assuming they modeled some of the Tmotor prop after the 5042, and then the 5043 came after the Tmotor prop. And I'm like surprised to say that this 5043 prop feels almost identical to the Tmotor prop, absolutely identical in every respect, except that it is just slightly less responsive. I thought that I would love the prop after like a couple flights. I was like, this is my new prop because it's so much thicker, it's so much more durable. I'll deal with the slightly less response. But then I tried the Tmotor 5143 again, and I definitely missed the response. It's such a tiny minuscule difference. But basically with this prop, you are trading response for durability. It's 1 gram more, it's got 1 gram more plastic, it feels the same, just a lot more durable because look how much more plastic is in there. So then they also sent me this prop, which is their 5049.9 or 5149.9, and this is super prototype. You can tell by the plastic, it's like it's an unfinished mold, so they're really just prototype testing it. So they had the 5149, which is a very good race prop, which is a very highly regarded and preferred race prop by many people right now. And this is their next iteration of that. It is definitely a steeper pitch. I don't have one of the 5149s with me to compare, but it definitely looks like a pretty steep pitch. However, Gemfan props with their pitch numbers don't tend to be as aggressive on the amps as most of the props when you read like a 5 pitch or a 49 or 43 or 45 pitch, which is nice because the Gemfan props just tend to be a little bit more efficient than most, more on the side of like HQ than Dahl, which we all know that the 5046 Cyclone is just an amp hog. It flies great, but it's a total amp hog. I actually like this prop a lot. It feels much more well-rounded versus the 5149. This is the 5149.9 is the second version of that. It feels like it's much better at the low end. It's much better overall, except for the very, very top end. The high speed control on the 5149, the previous version of this prop, is better. It's definitely better. But this is a better all-around, well-rounded prop. All that being said, if I was to race, I would still prefer the Azure prop. This company is not regarded highly enough. They are really doing something impressive. Even though their props look goofy, it looks goofy, the engineer for this company is actually one of the main engineers for Boeing props, and he brought all of his science to this stuff too. I don't know who he is, I haven't talked to him, but that's all I know about him. And so when Azure started making this prop, they actually had, in the previous version of a prop, they had the carbon mix material. It's a carbon resin mix. Well, they have a new carbon resin mix, but let's backtrack a little bit. So they made the original prop, and then they made the second version prop. They only have 2 lines of props, and I don't even think they make the previous version anymore. This is the 6-inch version, which I think is new. It's not even out yet. Maybe it is. I don't know, whatever it is. But it's a 6-inch version. It's a 6145. 6145, they're calling it. I love this prop company overall. I haven't flown the 6-inch version, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be awesome. And this is the new carbon that they have made. I mean, I don't even know how, like, why doesn't any other company experiment with these materials? Like, the previous carbon resin mix that they had was by far the most durable prop material in the industry, and it had better rigidity, and it just flew better. Even though it weighed a little bit more, it just felt amazing in the air. I don't know why. I don't know how material, this tiny differences can make such a big difference. But check out this material. Check out how hard this material, you can hear how hard I'm flexing this blade. And let's do it to the regular plastic. I mean, like, look at that. One finger, I don't even need to, like, stress my hand to bend this prop. And then you compare it to this prop. I mean, I want to make, like, frame arms out of this material. It's freaking awesome. But there's also a downside. I haven't flown it yet, but I expect this prop to crack if it whacks against something hard because it's so freaking strong. But it's also so strong, I expect it to crack straight through a branch. All that being said, it weighs about 1 gram more than this other material, but it has essentially no flex to it. So I am expecting the performance to be much better. I actually do not have a 6-inch quad right now, but I will be building a new 6-inch quad specifically for these props because they are so amazing. The one thing, just the material is so amazing, and I really am looking forward to testing it. The one thing I absolutely despise about this company is the packaging. I don't know why they keep using this packaging. It's awful. You can't travel with, you can't, like, put it in your bag, it doesn't fit anywhere. You can't even ship it properly. HQ uses the Ziploc bag. I've complained to Gemfan also. They are getting rid of this packaging. They're going back to, they're going to the Ziploc bag, and actually we are OEMing a like batch of props just for Piroflip with the Ziploc bag because it's easier to ship and it's more useful and it fits everywhere. I beg Azure to please just change this packaging because it's terrible. This is my personal pet peeve. While I'm on a little bit of a rant, I got one of these things too because I figured it would be a really nice, convenient way to unscrew my motors. It's not. The amount of pressure you have to put on this thing to grip the bell is immense. It's more pressure than I use to extract teeth out of people's heads, which are often not that easy. So I'm shocked, but I don't recommend these things. So also, as you guys may know, I have been trying to get a motor made to the spec that I want, which is a 2208 motor in around probably 1800 or 1850 kV. And that's the motor I've been trying to get made for a while. We've worked with a couple companies, and I've gotten really fed up with these companies. They haven't done it the way I wanted to, and the one company that did do it isn't able to actually make the motor. So I'm continuing my journey on trying to get this motor made, and I'm working with 2 other companies now. You will probably know what they are just from these pictures. I'm just showing you, one of them is a render, one of them is actually in production, and they're sending it to me very, very soon. I'm going to be building a whole slew of quads that are the same, or essentially the same thing, all on my new prototype frame that's going to be coming, so I'm going to test that also. And I'm planning on seeing which motor kind of meets the criteria that I want and meets the performance that I want. So with this new motor, or with this new thing that I'm actually dedicated to producing, I really want this motor. After feeling that Tmotor motor, I really want this motor to exist. But at the same time, I love high value stuff. So I hope that the motor isn't going to be sold for very much. I hope to even sell it myself at some point if I find a couple minutes to set up a store for myself personally, just me, just a limited supply of things would be great. It's kind of like a little dream of mine to just offer. But I also want to create a spec class. From the very beginning, when MultiGP announced their spec class, I talked to them about it, and I heard their reasoning for why they made the spec the way it was, but I'm gonna come right out and say it. I think they messed up on the spec way back when from the very get-go. I think the rationale may have made sense at that time, but it's my personal opinion that it is not adequate for today, and it was not adequate for that time, and it was not even logical at that time, and it actually excluded people more than included people. So the discussion I want to have is I want to ask you guys what you think a spec class should entail. Now I'm going to present to you what I personally think in today's atmosphere, what a spec class should be, and what I would really hope to put together coming forward. And it's funny I say this because I don't even race, but I want to race, and I enjoy watching racing a lot. I really like. I didn't even expect to like watching. I thought it was going to be terrible, but then DRL got a lot better. DR1 got a lot better. I go to races that are big around my area, so I actually enjoy watching it a lot when I get a chance. I'm also working on a controller, and I want to see more people doing it, and I want the tracks to be more intricate. So this is what I imagine a spec class to be, to include everybody. I want, first of all, the quad to be as indestructible as possible, the frame to not break. Even if it does break, parts are cheap, easy, just mindless to replace. After that, the parts need to be also cheap. So the motors need to be good and cheap. So in addition to making this 2208 motor that I want to make, I'm hoping to also make a very, very low cost motor that has all the parts that are really important. Like it needs to have the 9mm bearings, it needs to have a 4mm hollow shaft, it needs to have a lip under the bell, it needs to have 7075 aluminum. The rest of it really doesn't matter. If it's a spec class, it's a spec class. But here's the part that it would get a little controversial. So I personally think that racing needs to slow down. It's amazing watching these 6S racers going absolutely bonkers on the sticks and racing like crazy. I mean, it's incredible what these kids can do these days, but I can't see what's going on. Like, even as a pilot in this community, it's hard to follow the action. Racing just needs to slow down overall, and by slowing down, it also makes it much easier to fly, and it makes it more like strategic. Like, you have to actually think how you make your way through the course. And more people can do it, and the tracks can become much more intricate because now you can maneuver through intricate environments without too much worry because you're not going that fast. So here's how I think spec should be made today. Number one, parts that are cheap and indestructible. It should be as cheap and accessible to everybody that wants to do it. That's the paramount, the very number one thing that it needs to be, without a doubt. Number two, it can't perform poor. It has to perform reasonably well. But here's the part that's a little controversial. I personally think that we should be running 4S on 6S spec'd quads. And I get this idea because that's what I do when I fly my like proximity flying. And Sergio has recently told me that he loves flying 4S on a 6S quad, on Andy's 6S quads as well. And a couple other people do the same thing, and they just say it's a blast because you have so much control. It's so easy to fly the thing. It's just so fun to fly because you don't have to worry. You can always do the maneuver you want to do, and you can really think about what you're doing as you're flying. So my concept is to make a 6S quad, hopefully with 2207 or 2208, 1800-ish kV motors, but run the spec on 4S. That way, if you want to race competitively, you can run 6S, and there may be a 6S spec as well. But the actual spec racing will be on 4S. Now, I say this kind of lofty expectations that a spec class will arise from me just talking about it. Maybe, maybe not. I hope to be a part of it at some day going forward, who knows. But I'm just discussing because I really do think that this is important, and something like this needs to exist for more people to consider getting involved, because right now it's kind of fragmented, and for new pilots that haven't been doing this for years and don't know the history of all the parts and where we came from, like the Rotor Riot video that they recently did with Bachgrinder and a couple of other guys building quads from 4 years ago or 3 years ago. It was so fun to watch because I was in that era. I was suffering with everybody else. But new people don't know any of that stuff, so it's hard for them to know what they want and what they should be flying, or not like it really matters so much. But in order to make it easier for everybody, a spec class really needs to exist that is good. So I really want to know what you guys have to say. Please give me new ideas about spec, because I have been thinking about it a lot, and I know a lot of people have been thinking about it a lot. There's a lot of discussion about it right now as well. Anyways, that's it. The next couple of videos that are going to be coming, or at least a couple of videos in the future that are coming, are actually going to be very interesting and very fun. I also need to include the story of this thing because it's it's a bit comical. So I got this thing, and it was pretty bad. I didn't like it at all. I made a review video, which you may have seen. I don't think I really made a bad video. I think I did a very honest video. And then one of the test pilots for Hubsan actually commented on the video and then commented on my Instagram saying that he's a test pilot. He thinks I'm absolutely wrong. He flies professionally. He thinks it's a great option for beginners. He thinks it's a good quad. I responded with, I don't know where world you're from, but this is not something that I would ever give to a beginner. And then Hubsan actually contacted me and said, hey, we want you to test it with our new software that you can change the settings. And I told them, well, why don't you just put Betaflight on it? And they said, no, we want to keep our own software and they want me to test it. So they sent me another one. And then it's now been maybe a month, and I have asked them for the software. And I just went looking for it this morning because they told me that you can get it on their support site. And there's nothing on there. You literally, when you click the support button on the Hubsan website, there is nothing. It's a blank page. And there are discussions of in their forum of, I think, just one guy from Hubsan talking to himself about how you can go to the support page and download this software to tune this thing. Now, I'm not expecting too much, and I ultimately think that the issue lies with the controller itself because it doesn't seem to have actual dynamic range on the sticks. It's just kind of as an on-off switch. But I'm all for trying to tune it and see what I can get. But unfortunately, there's nothing there. So I like Hubsan as a company. I think they've done a lot of good things in the past. But stay tuned. Let's see what happens.